and this is for the hustlers, right? So I went back and I watched Snowfall. I watched every episode of Snowfall from the beginning. And the whole reason I watched it was to attempt to figure out where Franklin messed up, right? And as an entrepreneur myself, like, I was just thinking about, like, so many things can go wrong in your hustle, right? Like, things can be going perfectly, and then all of a sudden, just one bad move throws your whole equilibrium off, throws the whole game off for you. So I was trying to figure out what it was for Franklin Saint that took him from being on top of the game to obviously ending things, being alcoholic and crashing out, right? So here's my attempt at analyzing Franklin Saint and the good, the bad, and where it all went wrong. Right, and obviously Franklin Saint was a drug dealer, so this isn't, this isn't to say, he had a great business model to begin with, right? He was working with, basically working with the FBI and the CIA, and it was a lot of law enforcement involved. It was just bad to begin with, right? Like, this was all bad, but nonetheless, right? Like, he had something, right? Like, he had something that he could have helped take and could have took him to the next level. And essentially, what he actually did was got most of his family killed, his mom locked up, most of his friends killed or locked up or, crashed out. Like, so all that to say, like, what went wrong? Right, so I went back and, you got to start with season 1, right? Like, season 1, when he kills Kevin, right? And I got it, right? Even though I'm Kevin, like, I got that Kevin had to die. So that's not the issue. The issue, though, was he couldn't get his whole team on board with what needed to happen. And that probably should have happened before he even had to kill Kevin, right? Like, one reason he had to kill Kevin was because he didn't help Kevin understand that the bigger picture was everybody being on the same page, right? And once he couldn't do that, that was his biggest issue. And I think that was maybe Franklin's biggest issue throughout the entire series. Franklin had a terrible way of communicating, right? Like, he just couldn't understand how to get his people. As much as he would talk about my people, and I'm trying to help my people and all this other stuff, he couldn't get his own people to kind of understand his vision and get them on the same page and be able to work things out with them, which is why he had to kill Kevin, which is why, him and his auntie couldn't figure it out, right? Like, I just felt like they just need to have a couple of conversations. I know she was where she was at. She was trying to get her and Jerome popping. Like, I get that, but it just feels like they could have strategized that better. And he could have got them on the same page. And I know I jumped a lot because we're already on that, but I feel like there was a lot of filler in between. Like, yeah, he had some ups and downs, but couldn't do nothing about, his next door neighbor shooting him. Okay. He had to kill the cop. It actually worked out, right? Like, that didn't hurt him much. Scully and Manboy, though, that was one of my big red flags, right? And it goes back to communication. Like, the fact that he couldn't get Scully and Manboy to dead this beef, and, like, that was a mess, right? Like, there was no reason why at that time specifically, Manboy was like the dude he was doing the best business with, right? Like, it was Jerome and Manboy, right? Scully was a reliable, you knew what you was getting from Scully, right? He was reliable, he did his part. It wasn't nothing crazy on that side. I just don't understand how that all crashed and burned so quickly without him being able to put a kibosh on it to figure out how to. That wasn't a situation where one of them had to die. Like, and then from there, it really turned up because it just continued to get messy. That's how you ended up having Scully's child and baby mother had to get killed. Like, it got so messy because Franklin lacked the communication from jump, right? At the end of the day, like, I guess it worked out. Scully, Scully forgave him. Scully was cool, but things just got so damn messy so quickly, and what it was doing was removing allies, right? Like, he didn't have people around him that he could trust. He didn't have people around him that felt like they were going to be good. He didn't have people around him that, were reliable, and that testament, like, his own man, his security dude stealing his money from him. Like, that one I think caught all of us off guard. Like, we didn't see that coming. Could he get prevents that? Probably. It just felt like also like he had all his eggs in one basket, and it does come down to the end and how things came all apart. But at that point when he got robbed, like, he had all his money at the stash house. So stash house got hit, it was over. Like, there was nothing else to do. Like, now you need to figure this out from scratch. But then once he pivoted and he had the legit businesses, he had all these things. How was all your money all in the same offshore accounts, like, that were so easily able to be touched? Like, it just, like, you deserved everything Teddy did to you. Like, because at that point you already knew you couldn't trust Teddy anyway, right? Like, this man probably got your pops killed. I get it. Your relationship with your pops wasn't nothing amazing. You know what I'm saying? Like, that made sense that you didn't care that much. I don't get it, but I get it, right? But nonetheless, right? Like, you can't trust this man. So the fact that you were trusting the access he gave you and the accounts he gave, you need to have 3, 4, 5 different situations so that everything wasn't tied up to one boat. It's no different than hustlers, right? Like, you got to diversify your hustle. Just because one thing is working today doesn't mean it's going to work tomorrow. And he was starting to do that with the homes, but then that's another thing hustlers deal with, right? Like, sometimes we get swayed just because something looks pretty. It's now going to be something that is going to take up a large amount of money and a large amount of our resources. Is that necessarily the best use of our resources and our time, right? And that was the thing with the houses, the apartments, everything he was doing, the rental properties. I know that was his way of getting out the game, but the fact that he didn't even have it all paid off and none of that was squared away. This was literally, I am going to have to put so much resources into this thing just to make it move. And so much time and energy has to be in that direction. So that way, you don't have enough time to focus on what's going on outside in the streets. You don't have enough time to get your people in order. You don't, like, people's all plotting on this man, and he trying to figure out how to get rental properties off the ground, right? Like, it just felt like he never had a solid number 2, right? Leon was supposed to be that, but Leon really wasn't messing with him for several seasons, right? Like, they were on and off since Kevin died, right? Like, Leon respected him, Leon needed him, but Leon was never gonna be his number 2, right? Or his 1B or whatever the case may be. It just wasn't how their dynamic was set up. But that's what he was missing. And he tried to make up for that by trying to have his mother play that number two at times. He tried to make up for that by having his girlfriend play that number two at times. All situations that just don't mix, don't work, don't do it. Right? Like, and I think that was the other thing. Like, when it came to his mother, when it came to his girlfriend, baby mother, fiance, whatever she was in the end, he was putting people in positions that they weren't ready for. They didn't necessarily ask to be in. And just because that person works well in one area of your life doesn't mean you can just bring them over to another area and it's going to be seamless. It's going to work out. And I think that was one of the big things for me watching it. Like, gotta be careful of who you promote. Gotta be careful of who you have and you put too much responsibility on them. Because even when we look at what happened with him and Teddy in the end, in the very end, I'm trying to do this without giving too many spoiler alerts for those who haven't watched it. But when you look at what happened with him and Teddy at the very end, like, Sissy ain't need to be there. Like, why was Sissy there? Like, how did she help in that moment? Like, she's the last person that should have been there. Especially if she's telling you, like, after this we done, like, you don't need to be here. let me bring you somewhere. Like, we was Leon in that moment. Like, it just obviously it was a lot for me to, like, rewatch this and really, like, try to understand where this thing was going wrong on so many levels. And, like, it was like the end of Boys in the Hood watching Ricky die. And it's like, come on, like, can you pivot or something? Can you do something, fam? You an athlete. Like, Ricky, like, get it together, fam. That's what it felt like watching this all over again and, like, really trying to analyze it at the same time. Right? Like, so many people let Franklin die, man. From Peaches to obviously even Leon, right? Sissy, of course, but she wasn't built for that. Jerome, you know what I'm saying? Like, just so many people let him down. And he just didn't have his CEO hat on, right? And it was on, but it wasn't where it needed to be, right? And in all honesty, like, once you make a lot of those mistakes and you're in that position of, I had it all yesterday, I just got to do this one thing to get it back, I kind of understand everything after him being robbed by Teddy, right? Like, he really didn't have much of a choice at that point, right? Like, I am going to go as hard as possible because I need to get my money back, right? I need to at least get to where I was yesterday. So I did get that, right? Like, there's nothing you can do. I can't really blame that man for that. But, like, you just made so many mistakes leading up to here that now you can't even think straight, And because you don't have somebody to rely on, because you don't have, you literally crashed out. And at that point, like, you need so many things to go perfectly that if you don't have the right team to rely on, if you don't have the systems in place already where your operation is moving smoothly, because to be honest, even if he would have gotten that money back from Teddy, his operation was already so cracked and flawed that I don't know where he would have went from there, right? If Sissy would have left and stopped managing the houses, there would have been that. He had a whole baby on the way. This woman who was running his business operations was clearly not reliable to begin with, but she was in a position where she just had too much going on, and that's not the person that should be running this anyway, right? Like, let her focus. She already had left him early in the season. Early in the season, she was like, yeah, no, I gotta be away because there's too much drama. I can't deal with this. that's somebody you need to. I get it. You're not built for this. Let me put you over here. I need to have the person that's gonna run point over here. You know, and in all honesty, like that was Leon, and it was probably Wanda, right? And I get it. Like Wanda had messed up before, but like sometimes, you know, you show and prove, and like she was resourceful. She was the person who probably could have got this ship righted on the business side with Leon, and really like they came together with a triangle offense type of plan. This thing could have been where it needed to be. I get it. Still could have messed up, right? But maybe you wanted to crash and burn as badly as it did. I hate that for Franklin. I really do. You know, but that was it. That was my moment for the Hustlers. You can take that and apply that to any business you're running, right? Like any hustle you have. Those are the things that you need to like really take stock of, because if you don't have your team in order, if you don't have the right people in the right positions, if you have all your eggs in one basket, if you try to pivot into another business totally, that's going to take so much of your resources, time, energy, etc., etc. You know, trying to grow too fast, that can be problematic, right? It's all those things, right? Like there were so many elements, and that is why even, you know, as an entrepreneur, I watched it with yes, it's entertainment. I get all that. Yes, they were moving drugs and not the greatest business model, but I watched it as an entrepreneur, and I watched it to like, where am I going wrong? Where did my years swerve off, right? And it honestly was therapeutic for me, right? And we started Hustlers Anonymous because we, you know, I said every entrepreneur needs therapy, but every entrepreneur probably needs some sort of Hustlers Anonymous, man, where you can talk about your issues and where things went wrong, and you know, and the fact that you still want to do this. You wake up and you still ready to get at it again, despite what went wrong yesterday. You know, and I truly believe Franklin probably still got a money scheme now, right? Like, real life Franklin still like, yo, all I need is 2 more birds, bro. Get this thing back moving, right? Like, unfortunately, like, that's what happens to a lot of entrepreneurs, man. You don't want to fully crash out. You don't want to burn yourself out the way that he did, and you don't want everything around you to crumble before you kind of figure out what you need to do, what your next steps are. So